Hello, my name is Masha Nuts, and in this video I want to show you how to make this S-shaped or infinity-shaped bracelet. But before we begin, I want to let you know that this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Stay until the end of the video to hear more about them. If you are new here, welcome, let me give you a tour. In the description you will find timestamps for this video. You can use these timestamps to skip around to the section that you want to learn about, and it would also help you to rewatch parts of the video that you need explained again. So if you don't want to hear my intro speech, feel free to skip this, but I do want to give a bit of an intro to let you know that this is not a beginner bracelet. While this bracelet uses the basic shapes like chevrons and diamonds and so on, and it is still quite simple to make, there are a lot of steps to this, which is why this tutorial is as long as it is. It can be a bit confusing for beginners to follow, which is why I'm saying that this is not a beginner's bracelet. If you are a beginner and you're looking for where to start, I recommend you start with my beginner's guide video, which will be linked in the card and in the description. It's just a general overview and guide for anything that you might need as a beginner and will help you on your bracelet journey. And if you're looking for a bracelet to start with, I would recommend the chevron bracelet, which I also have a tutorial for, and I also have a playlist for beginner bracelets, which will be linked in the description. Well, alright, I feel like I've given you fair warning. This is not a beginner's bracelet, though it is quite simple. There's just a lot of steps. So let's get into those steps. Alright, so I've already cut my strings, but let me walk you through how many colors you're going to need and how long you're going to need the strings to be. So you need 3 colors, one for the background, one for the outline, and one for the color in the middle. You're going to need 8 strings for the background color, or 4 strings if you're going to do a loop and fold those strings, since when you fold a string in half, it essentially creates 2 strings out of 1. For the outline color, you're going to need 6 strings, or 3 if you're going to fold them. And for the color in the middle, you're going to need 2 strings, or 1 if you're going to fold it. In this tutorial, I'm going to be doing a loop, because that's just what I personally prefer to do, so that's what this tutorial is going to look like. But you can still follow this tutorial if you choose to do a different start as well. All of your strings are going to be about 1 meter long if you're doing a loop, however, make that 2 meters to account for the fold. So as you see, I've already cut my strings and I chose the colors to be the same as the pattern to avoid confusion. So since I'm doing a loop, I'm going to fold this string in half, and I want to make sure that the ends meet so I get exactly half of the string. And this is where my loop will be. You have several options for starts, but if you want to do a loop like me, and you don't want it to be too difficult, you can just do an overhand knot. And remember, if you need more help with this knot or any other knots, I have a basic knots video, which will be linked in the card and in the description. I go into great detail about every single knot that you might need for bracelets. But an overhand knot looks like this. Just like this, a simple overhand knot. Once again, this knot and all the other knots are explored in great detail in my basic knots tutorial, which I refer to save time in this video. If you do want to make a loop like this, make sure that you are happy with the size of the loop, because the size that you make is going to be the size that it's going to be at the end. So you might not want to make it too big or too small. This will be the size that you end up with once you finish the bracelet. But I don't want to do a simple loop like that. I want to do a basic loop, for which I also have a separate tutorial that will be linked in the card and in the description to save time in this video. Choose whatever start you want if neither of those starts are what you want to do. I also have a full playlist of different start techniques, or you can find something from a different resource and just choose what you like and start the bracelet. Alright, so I did my loop, I secured my bracelet onto my workspace, and I've arranged my string. Before we get any further into this, I want to talk a little bit about why I'm explaining in the way that I am explaining. And I often get comments under my videos saying that I talk too much in my tutorials, so if you're not interested in this part, feel free to skip. There's chapters on this video and timestamps in the description so you can skip around to the part that you need. But I just thought I would give you some context, especially if you're newer to bracelets and don't quite get the hang of everything yet. So this is a pretty popular pattern, and there are other tutorials that exist out there, and if you've seen other tutorials on this pattern and then compared it to mine, you might notice that I'm doing it a little bit differently to other creators. This is because I am using segment knotting when explaining my tutorials, and I do this for all of my tutorials. There are different ways to knot your bracelets, that being row by row and segment knotting. And if you want to know more details about that, I have a beginner's guide video in which I go the differences between segment knotting and row by row. And then I also have a segment knotting explanation, which I'll also leave linked in the description. This is just for extra information if you want it. But basically with segment knotting, there's various different ways to create the same design by doing it in separate chunks. And so the place where I'm starting might not necessarily be the same place where other creators start in terms of explaining the same pattern. So there you go, I just thought I would throw out some context there because I have seen people get confused about this sometimes. When comparing my tutorials to tutorials from other people, we still explain the same bracelet, we just start in different places and do it slightly differently in terms of the order in which we do things. But the result usually is still the same. Okay, let's actually get into the tutorial now. So the way that I have arranged my bracelet, we've got 3 yellow strings on the left, 3 yellow strings on the right, 2 black strings after those, the white string after those, then a black string, and then 2 yellow strings in the middle. And we are actually going to start with the middle today. We are going to start by making a forward knot between the 2 yellow strings. And since this is the first knot in the bracelet, and this is also the knot in which we're connecting the 2 sides of the loop, we're going to be more careful than usual. I'm not really going to be showing you the knots as I'm doing this tutorial. I'm mostly going to be naming them and then doing them, because I already assume that you know how to make basic knots, and that is covered in previous tutorials of mine if you need more of a refresher. It just saves time if I just name the knots as I'm doing them. So we did a forward knot, now we've got 2 strings poking in different directions. Let's focus on the right side for now. I'm actually gonna mix the strings together. I only really laid them out like that for demonstration purposes. I don't actually use them like that when I'm knotting. It's important though in this step to actually get the order right. So we're gonna do forward knots exclusively with this yellow string onto the strings here. And I'm gonna go through the order in which we do them. So first a forward knot onto the black string with the yellow string. A forward knot on the white string with the yellow string. 2 forward knots on these 2 black strings, 1 on each. And then 3 forward knots on these 3 yellow strings, 1 on each. So as you can see, we did a row of yellow onto these strings, and you can also notice that the start is a little bit messy. There's strings sticking out, colors peeping through, and the knots aren't particularly uniform. It just is a little bit messy. This is the reason why I prefer to do triangle ends or triangle starts when I create my bracelets, and I have a whole tutorial on that as well. But perhaps that's not really something you want to start with, because it is a bit more of an advanced technique. But when you do create bracelets without any sort of start to them, they tend to look a little bit messy in the beginning, and that's okay, we're learning. And then once we get more comfortable with bracelets, we can try new techniques. But this would be a perfect way to do a triangle start. Actually, right here, we're kind of doing a triangle start anyway, but we're not doing that technique that goes along with it. This would be the perfect pattern to do that with, but I'm trying to keep things simple here. So, left side, we've got the yellow string poking to the left. We're going to use that to do a whole row of knots to the left, so backward knots. With the same order once again, let's do that. 1 backward knot on the black string. 1 backward knot on the white string. 2 backward knots on the black strings, 1 on each. And then 3 backward knots on the 3 yellow strings, 1 on each again. Right, we've done that first row. See what I mean when I was talking about the messy start? Both of these are kind of messy. They don't really look like they're a shape necessarily, but that is because we didn't do any sort of clean start to this. And once again, the triangle ends technique helps make a clean start, but that is a little bit more advanced. Anyway, let's continue. We're still working from the middle, and now in the middle we've got 2 black strings. Let's make a knot between those, and that will be a forward knot or any kind of knot that you're comfortable with. When you've got 2 strings of the same color, it doesn't matter what knot you make between them, the resulting knot will still be the same color. So now we've got 2 black string, 1 points to the left, 1 points to the right. We're gonna focus on the right side for now. Grab all of your strings, except the last 2 yellow strings. Put those to the side, we're not going to need those. With this black string that is pointing to the right, we are going to make forward knots on every string here, apart from those two yellow ones, so we put those aside. And we're also going to exclude the second to last yellow one, since we're going to make a forward-backward knot on that one. So 4 forward knots with the black string onto these 4 strings first, which will be the white string, 2 black strings, and then a yellow string, and then 1 forward-backward knot on the yellow string. Let's do the same thing on the left, but mirrored. So grab the 2 yellow strings that are on the edge, put those aside, grab another yellow string, and just separate that from the bunch. Grab the black string, that's going to be the string we're making the knots with this time. So 4 strings we've got here, a white string, 2 black strings, a yellow string. We're gonna make backward knots onto those, and then a backward forward knot onto this yellow string with this black string. Let's do this. Alright, so this step is done and we can still see that it's a bit of a mess. It's not looking like any kind of shape, and that's okay. Beginnings are inherently difficult with making bracelets, especially if you're not doing some kind of clean start like I typically do. It's okay that beginnings look a little bit weird, and I'm trying to sort of push it down with my nails to make it into more of a arrow shape like this, since that's what we're going for. But when you don't really make a clean start, such as the triangle end, it's going to inherently look a little bit weird at the beginning. It should stabilize itself out as you're going along. And I'm saying this just to sort of reassure you that this is okay. I have years of experience in making bracelets, and this still happens to me where I don't do a clean start, which is why I prefer to do them, as I said. Anyway, just to calm you, this is okay. Alright, so next up, we are still working from the middle at the moment. We've got 2 white strings in the middle. Let's make a knot between them, and once again, it can be any knot, because when 2 strings are the same color, you can do any knot between them, whichever you are most comfortable with, since the color is still going to be the same regardless. Next, with each of those strings, we are going to do 3 knots. So with the white string on the right, we are going to do 3 knots on the next 3 strings to the right to it, which are the 2 blacks and then the yellow. We're going to make 2 forward knots on the black strings, and then a forward-backward knot on the yellow string. And same thing on the left, except mirrored, of course. So grabbing that white string and then the 3 strings to the left of it, which are the 2 black strings and the yellow string. We're going to make 2 backward knots on the black strings and a backward forward knot on the yellow string. Let's do this. Alright, so now we're actually going to focus on all 4 of the strings in the middle, but first the 2 in the utmost middle, the 2 black strings here. We're going to make a knot between those 2 black strings. Then with this same string, I'm going to do another forward knot on the black string to the right of it. Then the 2 black strings on the left center, I'm just going to do a backward knot between those. And then the 2 strings that are now in the center, once again 2 black strings, another knot between these again. So that middle bit is now filled in. Now this is the point where things are going to be a little bit different since the pattern is not symmetrical anymore. Focusing on the right side, grab that white string and that black string to the left of it. Let's do a backward knot with the white string onto the black string. Now we're going to grab the black string from the center, the one that's pointing in this direction, and we're going to make a forward knot onto this white string. Then we grab this black string. It's the 4th from the last, so we've got 3 yellow strings and then a black string. It's this one. And with this black string, we're going to do 3 backward knots, first on the yellow, then on one black, then on the second black string. And now let's just separate 4 yellow strings and then this black string. We are going to take the second to last yellow string, and we're going to do 3 backward knots, 1 backward knot on the yellow, yellow, and black strings. Now let's grab the outer yellow string, and once again do 3 backward knots on the yellow, yellow, and black strings. Let's once again grab the outer yellow string, and this time do 2 backward knots on the yellow and then the black. And we are done with this side for now. Let's now grab this black string. So just for reference, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strings on the right, and then the 6th string should be this black string. That's the one we're grabbing now. And we're going to separate the 3 strings that come after it, should be the 3 yellows. And we're going to do 2 forward knots and 1 forward backward on the 3rd string here. Let's grab the white string that is coming out of here, the one on the left. We've got one in the middle, but we need the one that's on the left. That yellow string that we just did a forward backward knot on, all of the strings starting from that one and to the right, we're going to put them off to the side. We should be left with 2 black strings, 1 white string, 1 black string, and 2 yellow strings. With this white string, we're going to do forward knots on each of those strings except the last yellow string in this bunch. We're going to do a forward backward knot on this one. 5 forward knots on the black, black, white, black, yellow strings, and then a forward backward knot on the yellow string with this white string. Alright, so we can kind of see a shape forming here. So we just did a forward backward knot with this white string onto a yellow string. Grabbing this white and the yellow string as well, we put all of the strings to the right of that off to the side. We don't need them right now. We're going to focus on the black string that is on the left. It's the 4th string from the left. And we're going to do something very similar to what we just did with the white string. Across all of these strings, which is yellow, black, black, white, black, yellow, we're going to do forward knots apart from this last one. We're going to make a forward backward knot onto that one. So forward knots on these 5 strings, and then a forward backward knot on that yellow string with this black string. Alright, so now let's just focus on the yellow strings and the black string that is to the right of those on the left side. Putting all the rest of those strings aside, we're not going to need them right now. So let's grab the 2nd string here, the yellow string, not the one on the outermost edge, but the 2nd one. And we're going to do 3 forward knots with it onto the yellow, yellow, and black. Next we grab the outer string and once again 3 forward knots on the yellow, yellow, and black. Now grabbing the outer string, we're just going to do 2 forward knots on the yellow and black. I'm just going to push this bracelet a little bit, try to shape it into the shape that I want it to look like with my fingers. Doesn't always help, but I like to do that anyway. We need this black string. So we've got a yellow, a black, 3 yellows, and then another black. This is the black string that we need. And with this, we are going to do 2 backward knots on these 2 yellow strings, and then a backward forward knot on the 3rd yellow string. Now grabbing the white string peeking out from here, we're going to do a backward knot on the 1st yellow string that it encounters, and then a backward forward knot on this 2nd yellow string. Then with this black string in the center, we're going to do a backward forward knot on the yellow string. And then we're going to grab the other black string that's also in the center and do a knot between the 2 black strings, which for me is just a forward knot. And now we're going to do 3 chevrons, which basically just means the strings on the left do a row of forward knots into the center, the strings on the right do a row of backward knots into the center, starting with the 2 white strings. The white string on the left is going to do forward knots until the center. It's only got to do 2 on the yellow and on the black. The string on the right is going to do backward knots into the center, and once again, it only has to do 2 on the yellow and then on the white. And then they're going to do a knot in the center once they meet. Now we're going to do a chevron with the black strings, so excluding the 3 strings on the left, here excluding the 3 strings on the right. Once again, the string on the left, the black string, is going to do forward knots until the center on the yellow, yellow, black, and white strings. The string on the left is going to do backward knots into the center on the yellow, yellow, black, and white strings, and then once they meet in the center, they do a knot onto each other, which is just going to be a forward knot for me. Alright, now that is done. We're going to do one more final chevron, and that is going to be with the 2 yellow strings that are on the outermost edge. There we go. These 2 strings, the one on the left does forward knots until the center. The one on the right does backward knots until the center, and then they do a knot between them once they meet. And there we go, we've got a beautiful S shape. If you are rewatching this tutorial to make more and more iterations of this design, this is probably the point where you would stop once you've reached the length that you want. The part of the video that goes after this is just going to be explaining the 2 diamonds that go in between the 2 shapes. Also, I'd like you to note that it becomes increasingly more easy to create this bracelet now that we've gone past the beginning. The beginnings are always inherently difficult, especially with starts like this, as I've already said multiple times throughout this video, but I just wanted to highlight that it has gotten easier, and once you get over that beginning, with any real bracelet that you create, it does become easier. The beginning is probably the hardest part of bracelet creation. So just some more reassurance for you there. It gets easier. Let's go into the 2 diamonds. We haven't got much left of this bracelet now, but first let's start with the yellow edges. Grab the 2 outermost strings on the right and do a forward knot with the yellow on the black. Grab the next yellow string and do a forward knot on the black and then the yellow string that we just did a knot with. Now we grab the next yellow string and we're doing 3 forward knots on the black, yellow, and yellow strings after it. Let's do the same thing on the left but mirrored. Grab the 2 outermost strings and do a backward knot with the yellow on the black. Grab the next yellow string and do a backward knot on the black and then on the yellow string. Grab the next yellow string. Do a backward knot on the black, yellow, and yellow strings. 3 backward knots. Now we're focusing on the 2 diamonds. Let's focus on the right one first. There are 2 black strings together here. Let's do a knot between them first. Then one of them goes off to the right and does a forward knot on the yellow string and then a forward backward knot on the other yellow string. Then grab the other black string that we did the knots with, and it goes to the left with a backward knot on the white string and a backward knot on the black string. We don't need to do a backward forward knot here since they're both of the same color. You could if you want to, won't really make a difference. So 2 backward knots, first on the white, then on the black string. Then in the center, we've got the white and yellow. The white string is going to do a forward backward knot onto the yellow string. And then with the 2 black strings closest to this diamond, we're just going to make a tiny chevron. Now with the outermost string here, the yellow one, we're going to do 2 backward knots onto the 2 yellow strings after it, and then a backward forward knot onto this black string. Now with the outermost string, we're going to do 2 backward knots on these 2 yellow strings. So a backward knot between these 2 yellow strings here. We are nearly done, we just need to do the same thing on the left side and then the tutorial can repeat itself. 2 black strings in the center here. Well, first we do a knot between them. Then one of them goes to the right in 2 forward knots on the white and then the black. Then the black string on the left goes to the left in a backward knot and then a backward forward knot on the yellow strings to the left of it. We've got a white and a yellow string in the center of this diamond. The white string does a backward forward knot onto the yellow. Then we do the mini chevron. Now we grab the outermost string. It does 2 forward knots on the yellow strings and a forward backward knot on the black string here. Then grab the outermost yellow string and do 2 forward knots on the yellow strings after it. Oh, see here, the black string popped through the knot here. Learning opportunity. When that happens, and that happens often, pull on the string you don't want to be seen. In my case, that's the black string. This should be a yellow knot. The black string is not wanted here. So I'm going to gently pull on it here, and you might hear... Well, actually, you didn't hear a pop there, but sometimes you can hear a pop. That did not pop, but you just want to pop that color through. Let me continue doing my knots. And finally, grab the outermost yellow string and do 1 forward knot on the other yellow string. And that is it for this tutorial. To repeat the design, you can scroll back to the beginning of the tutorial. I've got timestamps in the description for you to do that easily. And you're going to start by doing the same steps that I did last time, except one thing: you're not going to do the knot between the two yellow strings that we started with at the very beginning here, because we already have that done when we did the chevron. Skip that first step of doing a knot between the two yellow strings and go straight ahead with dragging one of those yellow strings all the way to the right, one of those yellow strings all the way to the left. And then you can do the infinity or S shape, and then do the two diamonds again, and repeat doing those two steps over and over again until you reach the end. As I already mentioned earlier in this tutorial, I would probably end with this diamond here, so like this. Feel free to choose where you would end, but I think that looks aesthetically pleasing, especially considering that's kind of what we started with as well. I'm going to finish this bracelet off camera, and I will see you when I'm done. And here we are. This is what my bracelet looks like in the end. At the end, I just did two very basic braids. You can finish your bracelet however you want to finish it. Ideally, I would have done a triangle end here as well to give it a nice clean finish. And then I usually do twisted ties, for which I also have a tutorial, but here I just went with a basic braid. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it made sense to you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. But before I go, let's talk about our today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators like you and me. Use Skillshare to explore new skills, deepen your existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Skillshare has a wide variety of classes on various topics such as photography, design, animation, and even crafts like cross-stitch and embroidery, or freelance classes about building Etsy shops. There is truly something for everyone to discover. I am currently exploring a freelancer class by Emily Simcox called Bookkeeping for Freelancers: How to Handle Your Finances, as it is one aspect of being a YouTuber that I've always struggled with, and I have already learned so much about business banking and accounting. Skillshare is specifically curated for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Additionally, Skillshare's entire catalogue of classes now offers subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Dutch. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check them out in the link in the description. And before I go, I also want to give a quick shout out to my patrons and especially my top supporters whose names are going to be on screen. Thank you so much for your support. If you also want to become a patron, there is a link in the description to do that. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video and I will see you in my next one. Bye!